Look at this turnout. Thanks so much for coming. So you're in the right place if you want to hear about Twitch and streaming. I'm Katherine. I run the advertising sales department for Twitch in Los Angeles. My background is gaming fundamentally. I started at IGN. I was actually one of the first people on record to break the Wii. If you Google my name, Wii, a lot of editors were not happy with me that day. I almost broke one of their monitors. So I've been involved for a long time. I launched Polygon.com. I worked at Gaikai, and now I'm running entertainment and gaming at Twitch. And today we are very lucky to have Brooke Dodger with us. We'll call her Dodger for this. She's actually one of our top female streamers on the platform. She has around 300,000 Twitch followers on the platform, so that is a huge number. And basically, to put it in perspective, she typically gets between 1,000 and 3,000 people watching her live. We call them concurrents during any one of her streams. So that's a lot of people. I was actually watching her stream last night, and there were 600 people just waiting for her to get on. And they were on for probably about 30 minutes waiting for you. You got some big fans out there. Did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so, great. She's been gaming since 2010.
Yeah, like on YouTube or Twitch, yeah.
Which is
2010.
An OG in this space. 10 years streaming is unheard of. So it's awesome to have you here and talk a little bit about female gaming and your path to becoming a streamer, how you made a career out of it, and then also how brands can work with you and have worked with you in the past.
Cool.
Is everybody in here familiar with Twitch? We've got a little video we can share with you quickly, high level.
What is Twitch? Twitch is 15 million daily visitors, each spending an hour and a half together watching in real time. Twitch is multiplayer entertainment. It's interactive. Live.
Second and 4. Oh, he's open, baby!
Shared.
I'm your biggest fan. I'm blushing.
And unpredictable. Twitch is home to the biggest esports competitions in the world, where brands can connect with creators.
Yo, shouts to Wendy's. Go get your prize for only $1, dog.
Innovative content combined with unparalleled engagement, Twitch is changing the entertainment world.
So on Twitch, and I think elsewhere too, there's been such a emphasis put on female gaming right now. On Twitch specifically in the last 3 years, we've increased our video views towards females upwards of 100 million video views in 3 years, which is enormous.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Pretty nuts. And so there's obviously a lot of things happening in the esports area as well. Bumble actually created the first ever female-only esports team, which is really exciting. And then a lot of brands are starting to participate within the Twitch community and influencers that are, outside of just core guys, but Mac, Maybelline are really paying attention. And then as well as Intel and Warner Brothers Theatrical, these are some of the other brands that are really focusing on evangelizing and participating with female streamers on our platform. For you specifically, I'd love to kind of hear how you got started in gaming.
Sure. Was
there one game that made you decide, oh my gosh, I want to make a career of this? Like, what was that moment?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, my dad was obsessed with Tetris. So when I was growing up, it was like my dad in the basement playing Tetris all the time to this day in the garage that he hangs out in. He's in his 70s, and he just like in the garage has a tiny little CRT like TV with Tetris burned into it at this point because he just leaves it on, and he's got, controllers just sitting off to the side in case one of them breaks so he can replace it. Like, he's really into Tetris. So that was the first game that I can remember, but then I really got invested in it because it was something that I could do with my brother, who's 11 years older than me. So he and I were able to play, Super Mario and Double Dragon and all of that stuff. Because we had just the NES for a really long time. But yeah, so I've been playing pretty much forever. Mm-hmm. I don't know, I guess like it wasn't until I had friends, like a specific friend who was doing really, really well at StarCraft commentary. And he was like, this sort of thing is really taking off on platforms like YouTube. And I was checking it out, and I was looking into other people who were doing gaming stuff. and realized that there weren't really any women consistently doing it. Like women were making videos and they were like talking about games, but nobody had like a show that they were doing, like a consistently uploaded thing. And I was like, I wonder if I could do something. And so, yeah, I had a lot of really good encouragement from friends and people who were like, well, what's something that you feel like you could do? Well, I know I can talk. I'm okay at talking. So I started a news show about the industry and about games that were coming out. And that was, yeah, how I got started. When I was still like getting my degree and everything is when I started doing that.
It's amazing because you had to start from a point that wasn't just commonplace. Like today, somebody decides they want to stream, they just turn on the computer and they're streaming live on Twitch, right? Like you had to go through a lot different of a process.
Which is awesome. It's so nice to be able to do live stuff. I was terrified to do it at first, side note, but.
Well, you're excellent at it.
Thank you.
Obviously, with 300,000 subscribers, it's nuts. What advice would you give to anybody who's thinking about being a streamer and starting today?
I get asked that a lot by viewers, actually. The thing that I would say first off is don't be afraid to just like play around and try stuff, because at first you aren't like being real, at first you aren't going to have that many people that are tuning in, right? It trickles upward. You get more and more people. And so it's okay to like look at people that you really enjoy watching and say, well, I want to try to incorporate that. I want to try to do that. I want to try to do this, and see what works for you and see what matches up with you. Because the other big thing I think is live content specifically does not facilitate creating a character or pretending to be someone else. You just get, it's already exhausting, it can be. And I think a lot of us have already made this mistake of trying to be, like the best version of ourselves when we're streaming, and it'll break down eventually. It's so much easier to just be yourself, play what makes you happy, do what you want to do, and not try to be, like more like a streamer that you like or more like a person that you look up to, because I think that these platforms really do reward authenticity. People like just seeing people enjoy games, and they like interacting with real people. And so not only is that going to help you build your community better, it's also going to create a situation where you're not just tired from streaming, you're also tired from like kind of putting on a facade, so.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, especially when you think about how brands can partner with you, because in all the executions that I do at Twitch with brand partners, it's really important that they approach the space, especially with streamers, from a perspective of how do I be authentic to this audience?
Right.
And then also how do I bring value to the experience that the audience is having? So you already kind of touched on that, but anybody in this room who is potentially thinking about a brand partnership with an influencer, streamer on Twitch, anything else that you would recommend outside of those two core functions?
Like kind of advice for the brands and for the streamers? I guess, I think that's the biggest thing, right, is as a streamer, if it doesn't feel like a good fit, it's okay to say no to something. And as a brand, if you look at a streamer and you're like, they're really big, we would love to work with them, but I don't know if it's a good fit, it's okay to trust that as a brand as well, because again, like we just watched the video, there's so many people streaming. There's so many streamers out there. I believe that it's better to reach out to a few smaller people that do match up with you really well than to go for somebody just because they're big and blow your whole budget on one person when it might not click, right? And yeah, I think from the streamer perspective as well, it's good as a streamer to look at a brand that's approaching you and be honest with yourself. Again, be honest about like what's going to work for your stream, right? And what's going to work for you. I've absolutely taken deals in the past where when it was done, I was like, that didn't really work, like that's fine. But I had an inkling it wasn't going to work to begin with. So I think from both sides, it's good to really observe one another and do what's going to work best.
Yeah, and I think especially when you think about Generation Z, like the majority of them are on Twitch, and they're all deciding on these lifestyle brands that might follow them
Right.
through the rest of their life. And I think that marketers are just starting to think about our platform in a way of like taking advantage of that, like being like, okay, how do I'm an insurance brand, like how do I get involved now so this person is a lifelong customer? Do you see that in how they approach you, like the messaging that they ask you to talk about, like how what you give advice back to brands potentially when they're like, hey, I want to work with you? You say, okay, well, these are some of the things that I would do. Like, do you give advice?
Right. Yeah, definitely. I've had to a couple of times. We've worked with people who have a brand that is really focused on, just as an example, is really focused on, say, the West Coast of America, right? And we have to explain to them, we would love to work with you, but Twitch is an international platform, right? So this brand that you're wanting to push on Twitch, your money might work better elsewhere because so many of these viewers are going to say, oh, this doesn't apply to me, you know, that kind of a thing. So,
Do you have a wish list of brands that you want to work with? If I was in your shoes, it'd be like Hawaiian tourism, because maybe
Right.
they would fly you there.
Honestly, actually, yeah, my husband and I, before, we've been like scrolling on Instagram, right, and been like, how come all these people, they get deals to like go to really cool, weird hotels? How come a really weird, cool hotel hasn't called me up yet? Been like, Dodger, you want to stay in an ice room? Yeah, absolutely. Where's the ice room? I would totally do that. Yeah, I guess travel stuff. Really, if a travel company did wanna or anything along those lines, a lot of the travel that I've done in the last 8-9 years has been for conventions, and after having our kid, my husband and I have a 18-month-old, so a year and a half, and we're now at the point where we're going, man, we really should have traveled more.
Absolutely. I hear that.
So yeah, definitely have more interest in that sort of a thing. But again, if it wanted to integrate with streaming, then you would also have to say to them, well, am I doing like the streaming backpack thing, right? Are you taking me somewhere and then I'm like mobile streaming, and what's going to facilitate that, and like what all do you want to make sure that I show, and is that going to be natural for the stream, right? It always there are always variables that sometimes brands won't think about, and I think it behooves us as streamers or as representatives of streamers to say to them, well, keep in mind X, Y, and Z, right? Because those are things that we're going to have to figure out sooner or later.
Right. I'm going to shift a little bit to just women in gaming.
Sure.
So when I was at IGN, we launched a website called Green Pixels, and it was basically, the vision of it was that it was going to be a site just for women gamers.
Okay.
And it didn't work. And the reason why it didn't work is because A, nobody came to it, but then B, women that were gamers didn't want to be treated as women gamers. They were just
Right.
gamers. So I'd love to kind of hear your take on your experience as a female gamer in terms of, growing up in this ecosystem and what you've witnessed. And I really feel like it's come full circle where everything now, especially on Twitch, feels very inclusive and very community driven. So I'd love you to just touch on that a little.
Yeah, I guess like for me, it's always felt most natural when stuff is marketed toward us as like just gamers, and it didn't focus on other aspects of who we are, right? And I think that kind of, especially with something like Twitch, where they're now outside of gaming, right? You can do all kinds of stuff on there now. I think still, even with like, say we were talking about makeup brands, right? Even then, I think rather than saying, we're gonna just market this at women, you more have to look at it as we're gonna market this at people who have shown an interest in makeup, right? And all of these websites in the past that have been like, this is just for women, I think a lot of times it's wound up making us feel like, well, that's just putting us in another box that's outside of the gaming circle, right? So in the end, it feels like most of the time, especially as the conversation grows and we're talking about it more and more, it's wound up that it's more effective when we can treat it as we're all a team that's interested in the same thing, and that's the thing that matters the most. Yeah,
makes sense. I think when people look at your success on Twitch, I think 300,000 followers is an enormous number.
Thank you.
And so, how did you get to that? Like, what are some best practices that you employed to grow that community? Like, is it constantly, because I don't know if anyone here has been on Twitch, but chat moves at an enormous pace. 30,000 chats happen every minute. And especially when you're on a really large influencer's page, like, I can't follow it. It moves so fast. And when I was on your stream last night, like, you took choice moments because someone said something funny and you're like, oh, that's really funny. The cat looks like this. And so it really engaged the audience. But like, how do you keep track of that? And how do you have them coming back and queuing up for you? Because that is a skill in itself that I think a lot of people would like to kind of copy.
When I came into streaming, I sort of came with a base because I had done, for like 3 or 4 years, I had done a daily vlog on YouTube that was called Coffee Time, and I sat down with my coffee and I had an unedited, like 10-minute video where I just talked about whatever. And it actually wound up being a really good foundation for something live, which I didn't expect for some reason. It wound up being a really good foundation because there are lots of hurdles to get over in terms of your comfort. So when you first start streaming, you have to get used to I'm talking to people, but I'm also alone, and that's a little weird, right? And then, yeah, it's something that you get used to, like involving chat. I've talked with a lot of friends who are developers, right, that have done a stream to support the game that they're working on, and they were the one who, was lucky and chosen to do the stream for that day. And they always say, God, there's so much to keep track of. You don't realize how much there is to keep track of until you're doing it. And I think, honestly, it's I don't want to say practice, but the more that you do it, the easier it is. And speaking of community, I think developing and focusing a lot on building up your community and figuring out what the rules are. The longer that everybody's there, they will reinforce the rules. Having a good mod team is, of course, like really important when you have a lot of viewers. But also, I've found that even when I don't have mods around, if chat is getting a little squirrely and I'm not paying attention, most of the time if I look back and something's happened, somebody else has stepped in to say, like, we don't do that here.
Self-policing.
Yeah, which has been really, really cool because my whole thing has just been, I don't want anybody to ever come into my chat and feel like they have to defend who they are, that they're going to get wrapped up into an argument that is going to make them uncomfortable, and I think that it's wound up creating a very welcoming atmosphere. So I do worry sometimes, like, oh, if we don't have mods here and somebody, is like trying to start something, is it going to be a problem? But it rarely ever is because everyone is so used to what's okay and what isn't.
I think that's a misconception, is that it can turn really ugly in chat, and on Twitch, like, it doesn't. And I think it's really because they are embedded and they feel like so a part of the community that the self-policing happens, and they are very like protective of you.
Right.
And I even saw last night, like, people like you kept on saying, okay, I just noticed that this might be in the game, so you added like another thing to be on the lookout for.
Right.
And
I started putting a warning list on the games that I play.
Yeah. And so, and someone was just like, oh my gosh, you're so great at this. Like, the amount of kudos you get is incredible. And there's another thing on our platform called bits, and what that is how you reward streamers with actual monetary funds. So a bit on our platform equals 1 cent. So it's a lot of how streamers make some revenue is that people are like, oh my gosh, I loved what you just did. Here's some bits, and give money to you.
Right.
And one of the highlights of me on Twitch was I got some bits and I gave some bits to a woman and she called me out. She's like, the K-Bowe, that was amazing. And it just made me feel so special and a part of the community that I started understanding how it feels to be embedded. And so with you, and there's some people that actually, there's actually a channel on Twitch that is just a bunch of ducks that are on a farm, and if you give bits, the ducks get fed. And
they always have to go into chat and be like, don't worry, we never overfeed them. We do monitor how much they eat, because people will be like, should I not give bits? They've eaten a lot.
I know, and it's incredible, and it's so fun to watch. And there's another person on the platform who plays the trombone and takes requests, and that's how he gets bits. And I'm not going to tell you how much money he made, but he made a lot of money last year. And so, like, how do you handle the bits and the subscriptions? Like, how do you reward your users? Do you do anything special for them? How does that interaction?
I try to make it so that, like, they introduced sub tiers, and again, everybody runs their chat and their stream however they feel comfortable and what works for them. For me, when the sub tiers came out, I sort of made a choice, like, I'm not going to make the tiers any different. Really, I'm not gonna reward different tiers.
Can you explain a little bit of what that means, the tiers?
Oh, sorry. So, like, a basic subscription is $5.99, and you can say, like, I want to bump up that subscription to a tier 2, which would be what, like $10 or something like that. So there's 3 tiers, and they each cost more. And you can say, oh, if you're a tier 2 subscriber, you get, these exclusive, like, pictures you can use in chat, and a couple of other things, and you can do that with each tier. And I sort of made the choice to have them all still be equal, because I was worried that people would start to feel like if they paid me a certain amount of money, they mattered more in chat. So trying to, like, monitor that kind of mentality as well, going back into the, we're all looking out for each other. We all built this community together. A lot of you guys have been here since I started. So I don't want anybody to ever feel like, they are less than a tier 3 subscriber, that sort of a thing. So that wound up working for me. But, like, I can go into my husband's chat, and his chat is completely different from mine, right? They're all yelling at each other, and it's hilarious. But, like, that's what works for him, and it's not what winds up working for me. So yeah.
That's cool. So
I don't know if that answered your question, to be honest.
I think it does. I think the relationships that you have with the audience is super important to understand, especially when we, like, tie it back to a brand perspective, because, like, again, it's entering that conversation with your audience, especially if you have a brand partnering with you, and they can understand how you interact, because you have your own style as a streamer, right? Not everybody probably acts the way you do when they're streaming. There's probably people that don't talk to chat at all for a little bit. Like, how do you balance the need of the community versus the need to entertain while you're streaming?
Admittedly, I get way too wrapped up in the game sometimes. There are a lot of times where I'm playing something and I look over at chat and they're like, you missed a raid, you missed a sub bomb, which is where somebody can, like, gift out a bunch of subscriptions to people. Like, you missed all of this stuff because you were so invested. And I do feel bad about that. I honestly, that's one thing that I really need to be better about is I'm trying to figure out the balance of, you can have like words pop up on your screen when different things happen. So there could be, like, a big sound bite and then a picture that pops up when somebody subscribes, right? And some people use a ton of them. Some people don't use any of them. Again, some people talk to their chat constantly. Some people literally ignore their chat. So me trying to figure out the balance of, well, I don't want to be shouting stuff out constantly, but I also don't want to ignore it. And I've found that for me, it's worked best to prioritize interacting with chat versus paying attention to the alerts, because I want to be I want us to be having a conversation, but I also want the conversation to be about the game.
Right.
So, like, figuring out that whole balance is also difficult. Yeah.
You have a huge social footprint. I think you have 400,000 followers on Twitter.
Something like that.
That's enormous. Again, congratulations. But I
Thank
think
you.
the other thing to know about Dodger, I was gonna call you Brooke, but Dodger is
It's
that
fine. You can call me whatever you want.
I'll call you Dodger. Is that you are really focusing on this as a business, right? So you use your social footprint to let people know you're about to stream. You have your own coffee company.
Yes.
You also have your own cat art.
It's like an apparel line with a bunch of cats on it that originally started on my Twitch channel. Yeah.
So you're showing, I think, a lot of people that there's more to just sitting in front of a camera and playing video games in this career now. I actually have a friend whose son dropped out of college because he's just going to be a streamer now.
Really?
And it's like more people are seeing that path instead of just seeing it as a hobby that everyone says they're in their basement playing games. Like, that's not the norm anymore.
Right.
So what advice do you have to people who are like, right now at 14, I mean, would Booga make $3 million at the Fortnite championship at 16? Like, what advice do you have for like a 15-year-old who's like, this is what I want to do forever?
Right. I think honestly, especially if you're living somewhere where you have to pay an exorbitant amount to go to college, college should facilitate whatever your goals are. And as long as you are also prioritizing other things in your life, then I say you should go for it. But like, pursuit of knowledge is also very important. It's hard. Everybody's going to be different.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I went to college, but mostly because I was able to get out of my parents' house and flourish as a person and like try new things and do all of that, right?
Yeah.
So for some people, college is going to be amazing. And for other people, they're going to, leave home and be absolutely miserable and have no idea what it is they actually want to do, but are paying to go to college anyway. And like, I think that it's hard because we ask people to figure out what it is that they want to do when they're really, really young. And I think that if you want to try out being a streamer, that's okay. Try it out.
It's easy to do that now.
It's really easy to just try it and see if it's something that you're good at.
Yeah. I'm so popular with my nephews. Now that I work at Twitch, like I come with gear and it's just like I'm the coolest aunt they've ever seen in the world, which is amazing because they're all just like, like this is their North Star now.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
My little 6-year-old nephew in England, he has seen Auntie Brooke and Uncle Sam come home for Christmas every year, and he's always told, like, don't go into that room because they're working, and he always bursts in is like, they're not working, they're playing video games. And I'm so sorry, Charlie. He's at the age now where they can say to him, no, that's their job, and it blows his mind. He's like, what?
Yeah.
You weren't just lying to me? They were actually working in there all those years?
You're getting paid to have fun?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so.
So for everybody in this room who wants more of you, when do you stream? What's your channel?
Oh,
I know it's changing, but.
Yeah, it is gonna be, we're actually about to move. But currently I stream almost every day. I stream twice a day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I stream a bit on Tuesdays. I'm literally gonna, like, right when this panel's done, I'm gonna go home and I have a stream to do.
What are you streaming today? What are you playing?
Final Fantasy 14. There was a story patch and I haven't finished it yet, so very excited about it. But yeah, you can find me on twitch.tv/DexBonus, DEXBONUS. I'm DexBonus on pretty much everything. They used to all be different things, and then I heard the term unified branding enough times that I just gave up. And
what about your coffee? Where can they get your coffee?
Oh, my coffee is DodgerCoffeeCo.com. We do coffee, we do tea, we do hot chocolate, decaf. We're trying to grow, so that's also a thing. And then Cat Gang Shop is where the apparel line is. So yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we have a little bit of time if you want to open up if there are any questions.
Yeah.
Oh. Hi. You choose. There's two of us. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You mentioned Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yes.
Tuesdays. Is there a strategy with like the days that you stream or the number, like you said, twice a day, like time a day? Like, do you have a strategy with that, or is it just I feel like?
Honestly, it's to facilitate that I also want to spend a lot of time with my kid. So I stream like in the morning for a few hours, and then I spend the rest of the day with her, and then after she's gone to bed, I stream again. It originally, for like the first year, was that I would just stream in the mornings and then be done. But I wasn't able to get through games very well, and I wasn't able to stream very much, so it felt like more of a part-time job, which I didn't really want. And I have a lot of friends who have said that they've really loved starting to stream early in the morning, streaming for a few hours, and then spending the day with their families, and then streaming again at night, and that seemed really appealing to me, so I started working that in. So there isn't really a strategy there. It's more just a work-life balance thing.
It's interesting because whenever a brand approaches my team for a theatrical release or a CPG product, QSR, they're like, okay, well, when's the most popular time that people are streaming? And like, there really isn't a popular time. It's really based on people like this that have decided that a Tuesday they're going to stream from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and they're going to have X amount of concurrence. And so that's a conversation we have pretty consistently with brands. They're like, well, I don't understand, why is it not 5 o'clock on a Friday? It's like, because the streamer's not doing it 5 o'clock on Friday, and it kind of just like is very based on what you guys are doing.
It's also, again, it's also like an international platform, right? So somebody's awake all the time. Somebody's streaming all the time.
That's true.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you feel yourself as a role model for young girls that want to get into gaming? Because sometimes streaming can be such male, or do you feel that you have, not a burden, but as more of a gift that you're actually showing girls they can get into that? And also just, would you ever have a game that you want to develop? Is there a situation where your brand would get to a particular game you'd like to be involved with creating or working in?
A friend of mine and I are actually working on a game right now. We're in the part of it, but yeah, we're working on a game, which is super exciting. And also, I definitely, I try to be very aware of the fact that that people might be watching me and either feel inspired or disappointed, depending on what I do, But I've had a lot of specific, not to bring it back to having a kid again, but when I had her, I had like a pretty open Q&A about what that was like, about what it was like to be pregnant, about what it was like to have her, like all of that. And I had a lot of people saying like, it was really nice to have such a straightforward, like kind of TMI conversation. And I've tried to always be that way, mostly because, again, I think that there are a lot of people watching who maybe would feel more at ease knowing that someone else that they enjoy, that they find entertaining, maybe has like similar difficulties or struggles or whatever to them. So I've always tried to be really honest. Like sometimes people will say, oh, well, if you're not in a good mood, you just shouldn't stream because you won't be entertaining, right? And a lot of times I've streamed when I haven't been in a good mood and just been like, I'm not in a good mood today, if I'm being totally honest. Like I'm not 100%, but I'm here and maybe my mood will improve, and sometimes it does. But I think it's okay to not pretend all the time that I'm 100% bubbly every day. And I think it's also okay to burp and fart and talk about having a baby on stream, so that people feel more comfortable just like talking about that, or less like there needs to be all of this mystique around being a human that's uncomfortable in their body.
But you are defining a new role model for women, which is really exciting. Like when I was growing up, it was like I played soccer. It was like the soccer players, and like I'm sure if I was a gamer, I wouldn't even know who that was. And so there's girls now that are probably seeing you and just being really inspired, especially how you carry yourself, which is amazing, and all the stuff that you do. Like I think it's really tremendous, and Twitch is really blessed to have you on our platform.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's very sweet.
It's true. It's very true.
Yes.
You said you started out as a traditional blogger. Now you've become a Twitchster.
Sure. Yeah.
Is that now your total identity, or do you do any blogging or other sort of outreach in, let's say, a less intense, more conventional, calmer social presence than I'm talking about my child, and I'm gaming, and I'm doing all this at once.
Right.
Do you, particularly now that you're into brand building, do you do any streaming or what have you outside of the intensity of the Twitch gaming environment?
I don't do anything on YouTube anymore, really. The last 2 years, I've done sort of like an event that people do called Vlogmas, which is a daily vlog that they do in December up until the Christmas Day. So a lot of people will participate in Vlogmas. I've done that the last couple of years, but I haven't done anything aside from live content in quite a while. I would like to change that, but unfortunately, in terms of like making videos versus doing live content is really straightforward. Even if it can be exhausting, it's like I sit down, I make sure everything's set up, I hit start. I'm live, and I'm doing the thing, I'm talking to the people, and when I'm done or when I want to be done, I hit the button and it's over, right? Making videos, even though it can be much more curated, you can show off like the best version of yourself if you want to. From a brand perspective, that is absolutely enticing. But it's also, I've set everything up, I hit start, I've recorded, I hit stop, and now I have to edit it, and now I have to process it, and now I have to, there's more steps in it. So actually, live content for a lot of people who started off with YouTube, live content has wound up feeling kind of relaxing in a weird way because there just aren't those extra steps. You have a stronger connection with your community. You're able to talk with them more. You're getting that instant feedback on like how they feel about what they're watching, and when you hit the stop button, you're just done. So again, even though I was absolutely terrified to do live content at first because I was like, what if I do something weird and then it's, it's just up there forever and I can't edit it out. Actually, that idea went away very fast.
I wasn't talking about produced content.
Sure.
I was more thinking of pressing the start button, going stream of consciousness, but just, and have the chat and the mods or whatever, but without the game, just.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Just look you in the eye, no game, this is Dodger, I'm talking to you.
That
Like
channel
that whole
exists,
distraction.
Just Chatting. I mean, Just Chatting is basically our home on the platform when you are not playing a game. And so when she stops playing a game and wants to just talk to her audience, she can jump into Just Chatting bucket and
Yeah,
go.
there's like categories on there.
Okay,
So
I show my age.
no, not at all. It's honestly, it's more of a newer thing.
it is.
It used to be that you could only play games, and then it started to expand into, well, you could also do like crafting, you could do cooking, you can do, all
There's
kinds
welding.
of things. Yeah,
Somebody's welding these days.
it's amazing.
Yes.
So more recently, they added a category called IRL, in real life, and it's now shifted into just chatting. So the idea of it is if you're just sitting there with the camera on and talking to chat and that's all that's going on, that's the category that you hop into. So I don't know if you guys can tell, I talk a lot. So I use that category fairly often, actually. A lot of my streams start off in just chatting for however long, and then we'll start gaming. So
Cool.
yeah. Oh, yes.
I was going to ask, I have a 12, almost 13-year-old boy, but again, this is his world, right?
Right.
He does this stuff. The one thing that I worry about is I'm in digital, so I get all the advantages and all the things, but I always worry about the security aspect of you're still a 13-year-old boy, or you being female, like you're opening up to all these people in the world.
Sure.
How do you balance that, or are there safety things that you put in place, or have you had anybody kind of cross over too far?
Oh, like in chat, do you mean? Or
Just in general, if somebody like either that they go, hey, I really want to know, like almost like the celebrity aspect of it, of I want to know where Dodger lives now, or I want to know places where she goes, or
Yeah.
in little ways that maybe I shouldn't.
Right. We were kind of talking about that a little bit before we started the panel, but I've definitely had the problem where when I first started, I was a little too comfortable with like what I talked about, and I've had to learn what is and isn't okay to talk about in terms of like the privacy of my family, for sure. Because people, there's always somebody who, even if they just want to see if they can, they'll try to find information about you. And I've had to learn to just like know that that person exists. Even if I'm not okay with it, I know that that person exists. And so it's up to me to try and be like more careful about what I say and what I show in videos. And my husband and I, when we moved into 2 apartments ago, when we moved into an apartment, he accidentally showed out our window. And somebody from just looking out the window figured out where we lived. It's nuts. But you learn that sort of stuff. I do think that security is absolutely something that you should consider. But as a viewer, I think that the biggest safety concern as a viewer really is like random messages from people, right? Like if you have your messages open, people can send you a message and be like, hey, I'm from Dodgers mod team, click this link, and they're not from my mod team, and there's a link there that is not okay, right? But there are things that you can do to prevent that sort of stuff. Aside from just like knowing that that could happen, you can make it so that nobody can message you and things like that. They do have it in the system to be able to guard against that stuff.
Brand safety is extremely important to Twitch, and we have moderators everywhere, and not just monitoring influencers, but any spot. So it's definitely important for us to make sure that everyone stays in line. Like you said in the very beginning, if you enter her chat and her stream, there are rules that you have to agree to before you even get in. And then by default, if you do something that doesn't fall within those T's and C's, you're out immediately from a moderator. So it's definitely important.
Yeah.
Mods work for Twitch?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm just wondering if you have any advice for finding your community, just generally speaking, way through YouTube?
I sort of started off with a bit of an edge because I took YouTube viewers with me to Twitch. But from talking with friends who are also streamers and sort of like discussing how we all got started, I think, again, establishing what your community is like goes a long way. So even if you have just a couple of viewers in there, establishing like a mood, letting them know what's going on in there and what kind of a person you are and what sort of an atmosphere you'd like. People, when they come in, will either gravitate toward that or they won't. And I think there's sort of a mindset that some people have that's, well, I want to keep everybody. But you don't necessarily want to keep everybody, right? There are going to be people that come in and they're not the sort of person that you really want in your chat because they want a different experience from what you're offering. And really, like, the biggest thing to try and get the sort of people that you want is to just like establish the feel and the atmosphere that you're going for in your stream and reinforce that, because then people will come in, and if they vibe with you, they'll probably come back. And if they don't vibe with you, that's totally fine. And I think all of us need to remember that it's okay for people to come and be like, it's not for me, and then go somewhere else.
Absolutely. And I think that's why those numbers are so important when you look at how many followers you have and how many followers somebody else doesn't have. It's because maybe they're not creating content that's compelling enough. Maybe they're not creating an environment people want to stick around and participate in. So those numbers are important. I think it really shows quality and craftsmanship in what you're doing. Any other questions?
Yep.
How much pre-production? I know you just hit live. But
Right.
You have to do some kind of getting ready for your stream, kind of getting into mode.
Sure.
What's that process, and what's the longest you've ever live streamed?
Oh, I've streamed for I think it was 25 hours for charity. It was a charity thing. I don't do that unless I gotta.
Unless it's for charity.
Unless it's for charity. If it's for the kids, I'll do it. But there are a lot of programs now that you can use. There's OBS and things like that. That basically, if you go in there, you can set up what your audio is like. You can set up how you want your video to be, and there are what are called scenes. Pretty much all of them use scenes. And you can say, okay, when I'm starting the stream, I want it to look like this. And then if I click the next button, then it'll be, you know, me on the camera. And if I click the next button, then I'm off in the corner and the game is there. So once you set up, for the most part, once you set it up once, you're kind of good, unless you're trying to do all kinds of new stuff. I have a couple of friends who are just brilliant jokesters that set up new things on their stream all the time, and it's really, really fun. For the most part, for like the everyday streamer, I think it's honestly actually pretty easy to set up how you want everything to look and have that persist for a while. And integrating, like, to take it back to branding stuff, it is actually pretty easy to integrate brand stuff into how the stream looks and all of that. A lot of it is just drag and drop nowadays. So yeah, I hope that helped.
So like 5 minutes?
Yeah, honestly, most of my mornings are me with my kid, and I go, hold on, honey, I'll be back in just a second. And I step over the baby gate, and I go to the computer, and I type in the right metadata, and I hit start, and I play music, and then I come back, and I go, okay, and now we're taking a nap. And then while the pre-show is on, I'm changing her diaper, and I'm putting her down for a nap, and I go, okay, I love you, baby. And then I go downstairs, and I start streaming.
Your
like,
hold music's great, by the way.
Thank you.
I was watching for about 30 minutes last night. It was great. So even that's compelling.
But yeah, for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. It just takes the setup time the first time, mostly.
So we're at time. One more question, or everyone's good? Great, guys. Well, thanks so much for coming and listening to us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you
Tune
very
in
much.
to Dex in an hour? 2
Yeah,
hours?
yeah. Whenever I get home, I'm going to be playing some Final Fantasy 14, if y'all like that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.